Hello everyone, today we'll continue where we left last week and focus on improving the reliability of our portfolio website by adding unit tests. We are going to use Jest and testing library, two really powerful tools for writing and executing tests in JavaScript environments. If you're new to my channel or new to this series, you can find the link to the repo in GitHub in the description box below. The base branch for this video would be video 2 final, and by the end of this video, we'll push all the changes to a new branch called probably video 3 unit tests in issue. Video 3 final unit test. Okay, so first let's install Jest and the testing library and other necessary packages. So let's open a new terminal. As you can see, I'm in video 3 final unit tests. This is a new branch that I created using this video 2 final as a base. So here, let's just install Jest and testing library. So you use npm, you will have to do npm install and so on. I use yarn, so I'm going to do yarn add then dev types Jest, and this is because we are using TypeScript, so we need to install the types. Testing library React and testing library Jest long and Jest. Okay, so we are installing types Jest, testing library React, testing library Jest DOM, and Jest. Okay, we run this. If you have installed Jest before and you run your test and you get an error saying, like, I will put it here in the screen, this error here, this means this is telling us that starting from Jest version 27, Jest environment Jest DOM is no longer included by default, so you'll need to install it separately. Okay, so because of that, I got that error before. I'm just gonna install Jest environment JS DOM. So yarn add the Jest environment JS DOM. Okay, so after installing this, your test should be able to run in a simulated browser environment. Okay, we also need to install Babel and its dependencies. So let's just come and say yarn add dev at Babel /preset and then Babel preset React and Babel preset TypeScript and Babel Jest. Okay. Babel preset env, Babel preset React, preset TypeScript, and Babel Jest. Why is not working for me? Let me just restart. Okay, refresh. Not sure. Okay, I'm just gonna copy this. Good. Okay. If your VS Code is acting a bit weird, the best thing that you can do sometimes is to just close it and open it again. Okay, so while we are installing this, we also need to configure Jest Babel or Babel, I guess, for our project. So let's create a new file and we're gonna call it justconfig.js, okay? You need to call it like this actually. And here we need to export, so module exports equal object, and we need to pass here the preset ts jest, and then test environment jest environment JS DOM, okay? This was the library that we just installed. So this file is what it tells Jest to use the Jest environment JSON DOM for your test. So once these changes are made, you should be able to run your test without encountering the issue that we saw a few minutes ago. Let's save this and let's create a new file in the root for the bubble configuration. So bubble config.js, okay? And here, same structure, module.exports equal object, and we define here the presets. So this is gonna be bubble preset and basically what we just installed. Actually, I have it just here ready, so I'm just gonna copy paste. But yes, this is basically what we just installed. Bubble preset m, targets not current, then bubble preset React and TypeScript. Okay, so we save this, and we need to go back to the Jest config because we also need to configure how Jest should transform our files using Bubble. So I need to add a transform here, an object, and then I'm also gonna copy this because it's quite long and complex. So here we're specifying the files, okay? So JS, JSX, TS, TSX, okay? We save this, and I think this is all the configuration we need, and we can start writing our test. So let's start for a simple one. Let's just close all of this and come to here to paste, no contact, this one. This is our homepage, about me page. So first thing I'm gonna do is create a new file called page.spec.tsx. You probably will see the unit test as test like this. That's also fine. But spec is also quite common for unit tests. So I'm used to calling them spec. So that's why. So here, first things first is when you are testing, you need to see it as a way of what a user would do. What are the actions that a user would do, and how can I test those behaviors so I can spot errors, right? So, for example, if a user is using this form, what a user will do is fill in the data and try to submit. What could happen in that situation? It could happen that the message goes through and the response is 200 and everything is okay. Then that means like, yeah, we need to test that, and we need to test that the response goes through okay. Then something else that could happen is that the user clicks in send message and there is an error. It could be a 400 error or a 500 error, and something goes wrong. So we also need to test those behaviors. We are going to import the render from testing library. So testing library Jest and actually React. Okay. We also need to import the Jest DOM. So import testing library Jest DOM. Just gonna put this first, and now let's import our page. So about me page, just like this, and we also need to import React. So import React from React. Okay, and now here is where we can start writing the test. So describe, empty quotes for now, and an arrow function. Okay, so here in the describe, what I usually do is explain what this page is about. So describe, for example, about me page. But if you had something else, you had like a contact form, you could say contact form, okay? About me page. And within the describe, we can create the test. Sometimes you will see it as it, or sometimes on here the same syntax, or sometimes you would see it as test, like this. Both are fine, okay? Oops, I don't know what I did, like this. I'm usually do it, so I will just leave it as it. And here, you just explained what you are going to test, so it should render without crashing. Okay, so save it. So describe is a way to wrap tests. So you could have a describe here and then copy this and have another describe here. Or if you have different sections in the page, you could actually have a nested describe. So describe without describe and then the it's. So here, render, and we call our component about me page. So because we are rendering the component, now we have access to the screen, which we will need to import it as well. So const title equal screen dot get by text hello, I'm Richard. Just like this. Okay, so I'm saving it in a variable. So now I can run a assertion. So expect title to be in the document. Okay, so we just created our first test. So now let's just run it and check if it's working. So the command is npx jest and just like this. Need to install the following packages. Okay, so maybe I was missing one package. Just to double check, because my VS Code was working a bit funny earlier, I think I'm just gonna try an validation error. Okay, we did this though. Let me just like reinstall all of this. Okay, and now let's just run npx again, giving you guys save everything. Let's go back to the configuration, just config. Babel, just config. Yes, just environment.js. Oh, okay, so I have an error here. Just DOM, I think it should be without the hyphen. Okay, this is working. All right, so just by running that command, it's gonna show us, it's gonna run our test and tell us if they pass or they fail. In our case, they fail. So it cannot find get by text. Hello, I'm Richard, okay? So because it cannot find it, it's gonna show us the HTML. So it's quite handy actually, because now we can come to the HTML and be like, right, so I was passing here exclamation and we'll have exclamation. And also we were missing the last name. So let's save this again, and then we can do npx jest, and now it has passed. Something really handy as well is the command coverage. This is going to tell us which lines are missing the coverage, okay? Like in which lines we are missing, a coverage. Okay, so we have our first component. Now let's go to my projects and do the same. Page.spec.tsx. And we need to import exactly the same things that we were importing here. So testing library Jest DOM and React testing library React. So testing library Jest DOM and import render testing library React. Why not doing the same? Yes. Okay, not sure. I probably had a typo there. And now we can also import our components. So my projects from page, good. And same, describe my projects page, arrow function. It should render correctly, for example, at arrow function. And here, render my projects, okay? And let's see what we can check. So if I go to my projects page, we have this title here, my projects. We can check if this title is there. So const title, so same screen. So I need to import it. Dot get text by get by text my projects, and now expect title to be in the document. All right, let's just run this again. And React is not defined. Okay, import React from React. And it has passed. Okay, these two are really easy, and there are a lot more selectors that we can use. You have get by text, you have get all by text, which we could use that if you have multiple tests that is my projects. And you could also use get by role. So if we want to select a button, so imagine that we have a button here, we could say get by role button, and then we can pass here the name of the button. For example, send message. We'll see this in a bit later. And yes, if you check the documentation of this testing library, you'll probably see that we also have query, all, and there is a bit of a difference between get and query. We won't look into it too much, but have a read the documentation and play around. For now, when we want to check if something is in the screen, in the page, we will check for get. If something, imagine that you click a button and that button shows a text, then we will use the query by text. So basically, we'll use the query when we want to query for an element that was previously hidden and it became visible by an interaction. Well, just have a read, and they'll probably explain it better in the documentation. So let me just undo everything I did at the moment. So this is working, and this was easy. Let's go to, if I run npx Jest coverage, Okay. Okay, now we can see more things. Good. So we can see that my project has 100% coverage. And same with product cards. Good. Although we probably should have also a unit test for this one. But let's go to here, to the envelope, to this icon. Okay. I will do one as an example, and then all the other icons would be the same. So component icons. So I'm just gonna copy and paste this and rename it to spec. Okay. And now I'm just gonna copy all of this, make it faster. And here, this should be envelope from envelope. And it's like this because we are exporting it like this. Okay, so we save this. And this is going to be slightly different, but I'm just gonna copy this describe. Okay, envelope icon. It should render correctly, that's fine. And here, envelope, and we have a class name. We can pass it, or we don't, I think this is optional, but let's just pass it, class name. Okay, let's just pass it so we can also test if this class has been added. So let me just remove this. And here, instead of the screen, I'm going to use the container. So I'm just gonna destructure it from here. So, oops, okay, container. So now I can use this container. I'm going to create a new variable to say SVG element because this icon is an SVG. So now I can do container dot query selector and SVG. Okay, so we are selecting the SVG. And now, now we can do a spec actually. So SVG element first to be in the document. Okay. Now we can also assert for, let's see. We can also assert for the width and the height, and we said that we also will. I said that I also want to assert for the class. Okay, so expect yes, SVG element to have attribute, and here is, let's say, width 1 EM. It should be a comma, and the same for the height. Bear in mind that you don't need to test absolutely everything. This is just an example, so you see different ways of how we can assert this component. And let's also assert if it has a class, so to have class, yes, and here should be class. Okay, this name you can call it whatever you want. So let's just save this, and I actually have installed a library. I think it's just called Jest. Just run it. Okay, so it's this one. Just run it. And with that one, I can run the tests from my file without writing any commands. So just by clicking here in the run, and let me do it again. Okay, no such file. Let me save it, save this. I don't know why my VS Code is not behaving today, so just gonna run it. Okay, yes, so everything passed, although I'm getting here an issue in my project saying that, okay, let's solve that. My projects page is saying that each child in a list should have a unique key prop. So that is so true. something that I forgot to do. So it's not a great idea to use the index as the key, but I'm just gonna pass it for now. That should be okay for this type of lists, to be honest. And each child, okay, I think this is fine now. I shouldn't complain anymore. Jest is not installed. What? Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it like that. Hopefully you don't run into these issues because I did install this. I probably need to reset my laptop at some point. But anyway, so this is the test for the envelope icon. Now you can go ahead and create a file per icon. It might be a bit overkilling, to be honest, so it might be a better idea to save this icon as a SVG file and probably store it in the static folder. But it's a good practice, actually, and we are passing here class name as a prop. So yeah, that's your homework. You need to complete the unit test for these ones. Okay, let's go to contact, the contact page. So we go to here to contact me. I'm gonna go directly to the form because this page is also really easy. We will just create a unit test similar to this one here, and just to assert that we get that this page is rendering correctly. But this form is a little bit, has a lot more complexity for sure, so I'm just gonna create this spec, form.spec.tsx. Okay, for this one we need to test all of this functionality. We need to test that when the user clicks send message, if the message has been sent successfully. Okay, so we need to test this, and we also need to test that if the response is not okay, if that we are getting this HTTP error status plus the response status, and also when we had a internal server error. Okay, so we need to test all of this. So when you are testing, and you don't need to test the states, or, you know, we don't need to test this. When you are testing, you need to see it as a way of what a user would do. What are the actions that a user would do, and how can I test those behaviors so I can spot errors, right? So, for example, if a user is using this form, what a user will do is fill in the data and try to submit. What could happen in that situation? It could happen that the message goes through and the response is 200 and everything is okay. Then that means, like, yeah, we need to test that, and we need to test that the response goes through okay. Then something else that could happen is that the user clicks in send message and there is an error. It could be a 400 error or a 500 error, and something goes wrong. So we also need to test those behaviors. So let's go to the form. I'm just gonna copy and paste all of this, and form, from form, okay, so need to do like this, and form. So contact form. Okay, content form, you could add here component you want. And the first test, it should submit the form and show a successful message. Okay, so we are rendering the form. Now let's remove this, and I'm going to also import var events and wait for. So the var event, it's what we are going to use to simulate when the user types in the input and fill in the name, or simulates when the user clicks the button. Okay, so change, then screen, get by role, no, get by label, actually label text. Okay, and here we can pass a name. Yes, name. Okay. So this is change, and the target value, we need to pass like some structures we will have. So target value, and then you pass here the value or some. Okay. So now you do this with all the other fields. So this will be company, and let's say time to code, and email, and you say time to code at gmail.com. Not sure. This is how my email is actually. And one more, which is message. And just say, hey there. Okay. So we save this. And now we need to submit the form. So we could use per event, or we can also use another one that is user dot click, but we will have to import that one. Let's just stick with for event. Submit, and screen dot get by role. Okay, this is the one that I was showing you earlier. And battle name, send message. Okay, screen, submit, get by role. Yes. Okay. So now that I have submitted, I need to check if we get this test in the screen. Message has been sent. Okay, so let's just do expect screen get by text to be in the document. Okay, but this will only happen once that all of this, like once that the user, well, in this case the simulator, clicks in send message, sends a API request, and come back with this message has been sent. Okay, so this needs time. So we need to await for all of this to happen before we assert this. So await, wait for our own function, and we move this line here. And this is complaining because this can only be called in async functions. So we come here and we pass the keyword async. Okay, let's run this. npx, yes. Okay, get by text. And it cannot get by label text. Okay, yes, I have 3 assets here. So let's save this. Let's clear and run it again. Get by label. Okay, good. This is just a different error. Good. So let's go up, and it's telling us unable to find an element with the text message has been sent. This could be because the text is broken. No, it's not because of this. So this is not gonna work, and because we are using fetch Okay, let me fetch. We are using this fetch, and this function is not available by default in testing environments. There are two really popular libraries that we can use. I don't know what I did. One is MSW and the other one is knock. What these libraries do is intercept and mock the network requests without actually making a real API call. So let's go to terminal. Here I'm just gonna install, I'm gonna use MSW. And now from here we can import them. So in the spec, import and set up server from MSW node. Okay, and import REST, because we have a REST API from MSW. Okay, so with these two imported, now we can create a handler that this will make the fake call and define the response. So cons handlers, and we can have here an array, so you can define more than one, and REST post. This is what we have, and here we need to pass the path to our APIs. So API contact, and now, okay, and here we pass rec for request, response, and CTX context. All right, and here is where we define our mock response. So return res CTX dot status 200. Okay, we save this, and now here just below we can say server equal setup server handlers. Okay, and we need to add here before all. I'll explain in a minute what this is. So we need before all server listen, after each arrow component server dot reset handlers, and after all server dot reset handlers as close. Okay, so what we are doing here is with this setup. So with this setup, using MSW or a similar library, when our code calls the fetch function in the handle submit, in this handle submit, the request won't actually go to the network. Instead, MSW will intercept the request and provide a predefined response that you define here in your test. So this means that you can simulate different scenarios like successful request and an error response without making a real network request. And we are going to add more scenarios here, okay? So this is quite important to understand. We are not actually doing a real request. We are just faking it. So it allows us to test how our code handles this response and ensures that it behaves correctly in different situations, okay? So by using this approach, we can be in more control over the responses our code receives during testing and making our tests more reliable and predictable without relying in the actual network connectivity. Okay, and what this is doing is we are setting up our server and we are passing all the handlers here, and This is a function that we can have to say before all the tests, we want to listen to the server. After each test, we want to restore the handlers. And after all the tests, we want to close the server. Okay, so we save this and let's come here and run this test. Okay, another error. And we still get an error here. By we scroll up, we have here this console log. There was a problem with fetch operation. Fetch is not defined. Okay, so we are getting here again an error about fetch because the fetch API is a browser-based API, which doesn't exist in Node environments. So when Jest run test, since it operates in a Node environment, it can't find the fetch function. So there is a library that we can install for that. So yarn at dev -dev isomorphic fetch. Okay. Okay, so we installed this and now we come to the top of the page and we can import it. Import isomorphic fetch. Let's save it and let's run it again. Okay. Sorry, I was just running the install. Okay, let's just run npx test. And now our test passes. Okay, so it was a bit tricky at first because there were a few things that we were missing, but as you can see, it's not too bad. We are simulating the changing this input form and adding the values. So the value for the name input, for the company, for email, and this test message. And then we are firing an event, which we are submitting the form. We are firing another event, submitting the form. And here we are awaiting until all of this happens to assert this, assert that we have message has been sent in the document. Okay, this wasn't too bad. Now we need to test 2 more scenarios when we have these 2 errors here. These 2, okay? If you want to give it a go, pause the video and yeah, you can pause the video now and I will carry on working on it. All right, let's just add these 2 scenarios. We need to refactor this a little bit, change this code. Okay, so to check this, let's just say const email. I'm destructuring the email from the response. So request.json. And this is going to complain because, yeah, this is a promise. So we need await. And if we add await here, we need async. So async, okay. So now we get email. So we could say if email is equal to but request response.com. Okay, so if that is equal, then we want to return the response that is CTX status 400. And the message, oops, okay. And the message here, but request. So this is if this is a bad request, otherwise else if the email is equal to, let me just do it British actually, .co.uk, okay. So if this is, let's just say internal server error, okay. It's in the quotes. So else if email is equal to internal error response, then return response, context.status 500 and context.json message. And here you can pass any message you want. I'm just gonna say internal server error. Okay, so otherwise we return the 200. And we can do the same that we are doing here as passing this message. We could just say context.json or yes, context.json message success. Like this. Okay. Let's create the test for this. So it should handle 400 but request response. And so I'm going to need the same that we have here. So let me just copy all of this. Copy. Okay, and this is also a asynchronous function. But here, instead of time to code, I'm gonna pass this email that we created here. So bad request. Scroll to the bottom and like this. Then we submit the form and we also need to await for it. Wait for. Okay. So in this case, if we go to the form, we can see here how we are logging in the error in a console, right? So the way that we can test this is by spying on it. So to spy on something, for example, like the console log, we can come here and just within the describe, for example, and say const console spy, and just use this spy function from Jest, spy on Jest, and then console log, so the log one, and mock implementation, yes, mock implementation. And then in these ones, in these two, let me just convert this into brackets. We could clear this mock. So mock clear. Okay, and same with this one. Although, I mean, we are cleaning after each. It's probably not necessary, but yes, it's definitely not necessary. So let's just leave it like this. Okay, so now I can come to this await, wait for, and expect console spy, and to have been called, and you can also check for the have been called the times, or with, but to have been called is fine. Or actually no, let's just say with, and here I'm gonna pass this text that we have here. There was a problem with the operation HTTP error. There was a problem with the operation. I think it should be HTTP. Let me see what we are doing here. So, okay. So, bad request. This is the message. And this is the status. And here we are passing. There was a problem with the fetch operation. Okay, so we throw this. HTTP error, yes. and the status is 400. Let's save this. Let's just run it. And it passed. Okay, this is really cool. Now we need to do exactly the same for the 500 errors. So this is a perfect moment to stop the video and do it on your own, and then check the result. Internal error and server error. And we are repeating here quite a bit. So there is definitely a lot of refactor that we could do here. So I leave that to you. And so yes, all of this stays the same, time to code, all of this, but we need to change this one and internal, I don't remember how it was, internal error. Okay, so in this case, we are passing the email internal error. And now we are testing that it should handle the 500 internal server errors. So here, there was a problem with the fetch HTTP error status. In this case, is 500. Save it. And yes, it has passed. And now, let's just add the coverage. Okay, not bad. Look at this, all green. And this 0 is the index for the icon. All right, and there you have it. But you learn how to write unit tests for our Next.js and TypeScript application. There is a lot more to learn to this. So, okay, so if I were you, I would definitely check out this testing library documentation and start playing with it. Any application that you have, I will start creating the unit tests and testing them, because this is a really important step for any development. So in any company that you work, I think nowadays, maybe a few years ago, it was definitely different, but nowadays I think it's expected to write unit tests. This is an important step in any production development, and as it helps us to catch bugs early and ensures that our site is functioning correctly. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I see you in the next video. I think in the next video we are going to look into MongoDB. So we are going to replace our JSON database, this one, for a real MongoDB database. Okay? See you in the next one. Thanks for watching.